Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Hari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Hari Yashodanandana Rajadanarandana Yashodanandana Rajadanarandana Jamuna Tira Jamuna Tira Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Hari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Hari Yashodanandana Rajadanarandana Yashodanandana Rajadanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare 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 Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Gaura Pimanandi, Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa, Pri Vrajagacharya Stotra Satya, Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Tilabhavi Charanarvind Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki, Skandiviti, Founder Charya, Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Namacharya Srila Hridas Thakur Ki, Samavata Bhakti Vrinda Ki, Harinam Sankirtan Ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Dainitai Gaura Pimanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru, to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurundiritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Vayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavam Sya Sri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakanvitam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vanchakalpa Tirubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. No competition to the sun. Narayanam Namaskritya. That one. Narayanam Namaskritya. Naram Shaiva Narotamam. Devim Sarasatim Vyasam. Tato Jayamudiraya. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayana Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Sridham Mayapur, the author. Nasta Praya Sabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed or practically to nil. And loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahmasamitam Kamashloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasyayanam Mahat. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God as Sridham Mayapur. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Sarabhyay Namaha. Om Sarabhyay Namaha. Om Sarabhyay Namaha. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yad kripa tamaham bandhe Shri Gurum Dinataranam yad kripa tamaham bandhe Shri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our morning Bhagavatam class. We continue from canto number 2, chapter 4, entitled The Process of Creation. And today's text is 2:1, 21. Yad Angri Abhidhyana Samadhi Dotaya Dhyana Pashyanti Hi Tattvam Atmanaha Vadanti Chaitat Kavayo yatha rucham sa me mukundo Bhagavan prasidatam yadangryabhijnana samadhidotaya dhiyanupashyanti hi tattvamatmanaha vadanti chaitat kavayo yatha rucham same mukundo bhagavan prasidatam yadangryabhijnana samadhidotaya dhiyanupashyanti hi tattvamatmanaha vadanti chaitat kavayo yatha rucham same mukundo bhagavan prasidatam yadangryabhijnana samadhidotaya dhiyanupashyanti hi tattvamatmanaha vadanti chaitat kavayo yatha rucham same mukundo bhagavan prasidatim same mukundo bhagavan prasidatam yadangryabhijnana samadhidotaya dhiyanupashyanti hi tattvamatmanaha vadanti chaitat kavayo yatha rucham same mukundo bhagavan prasidatam yadangryabhijnana samadhidotaya dhiyanupashyanti hi tattvamatmanaha vadanti chaitat kavayo yatha rucham same mukundo bhagavan prasidatam. One more. yadangryabhijnana samadhidotaya dhiyanupashyanti hi tattvamatmanaha vadanti chaitat kavayo yatha rucham same mukundo bhagavan prasidatam yat angri whose lotus feet abhidhyana thinking of at every second samadhi trance dhotaya being washed of dhiya by such clean intelligence anupashyanti does see by following authorities. He certainly tattvam, the absolute truth, atmanaha, of the Supreme Lord and of oneself. Vadanti, they say, cha, also, etat this Kavayaha, philosophers or learned scholars, Yatharucham, as he thinks, Saha, he may, mine, Mukunda, Lord Krishna, who gives liberation, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Prasidatam, being pleased with me. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. It is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who gives liberation by thinking of his lotus feet at every second, following in the footsteps of authorities. The devotee in trance can see the absolute truth. The learned mental speculators, however, think of him according to their whims. May the Lord be pleased with me. Kindly repeat after me. It is the personality of Godhead, the Sri Krishna, who gives liberation by thinking of his lotus feet at every second, following in the footsteps of authorities. The devotee in trance can see the absolute truth. The learned mental speculators, however, think of him according to their whims. May the Lord be pleased with me. These are the continuing prayers of Srila Shukadeva Goswami in a discussion with Parikshit Maharaj. Purport. The mystic yogis, after a strenuous effort to control the senses, may be situated in a trance of yoga, just to have a vision of the super soul within everyone. But the pure devotee, simply by remembering the Lord's lotus feet at every second, at once becomes established in real trance, because by such realization, his mind and his intelligence are completely cleansed of the diseases of material enjoyment. The pure devotee thinks himself fallen into the ocean of birth and death, and incessantly prays to the Lord to lift him up. He only aspires to become a speck of transcendental dust at the lotus feet of the Lord. The pure devotee, by the grace of the Lord, absolutely loses all attraction for material enjoyment. And to keep free from contamination, he always thinks of the lotus feet of the Lord. King Kulashekar, a great devotee of the Lord, prayed, Krishna Tvadiya Pada Pankaja Panjarantam Ajaiva Me Vishatu Manasa Rajahamsa Prana Prayana Samaye Kapha Vatapitai Kanta Varodhana Vidau Smaranam Kutaste. Translation. My dear Lord, I pray that the swan of my mind may immediately sink down to the stems of the lotus feet of your Lordship and be locked in their network. Otherwise, at the time of my final breath, when my throat is choked up with cough, how will it be possible to think of you? There is an intimate relationship between the swan and the lotus stem. So the comparison is very appropriate without becoming a swan or paramahamsa. One cannot enter into the network of the lotus feet of the Lord. The network of the lotus feet of the Lord. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, the mental speculators, even by dint of learned scholarship, cannot even dream of the absolute truth by speculating over it for eternity. The Lord reserves the right of not being exposed to such mental speculators. And because they cannot enter into the network stem of the lotus feet of the Lord, all material speculators differ in conclusions. And at the end, they make a useless compromise by saying, as many conclusions as many ways, according to one's own inclination, yatha rucham. But the Lord is not like a shopkeeper trying to please all sorts of customers in the mental speculator exchange. The mental speculator exchange is like a stock market. The Lord is what He is, the absolute personality of Godhead, and He demands absolute surrender unto Him only. The pure devotee, however, by following the ways of previous acharyas or authorities, can see the Supreme Lord through the transparent medium of a bona fide spiritual master, anupashanti. The pure devotee never tries to see the Lord by mental speculation, but by following in the footsteps of the acharyas. Mahajano yenagata sapantaha. Therefore, there is no difference of conclusions amongst the Vaishnavacharyas regarding the Lord and the devotees. Lord Chaitanya asserts that the living entity, Jiva, is eternally the servitor of the Lord, and that he is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord. This tattva of Lord Chaitanya's is shared by all four sampradayas of the Vaishnava school, all accepting eternal servitude to the Lord, even after salvation. And there is no authorized Vaishnavacharya who may think of the Lord and himself as one. This humbleness of the pure devotee who is 100% engaged in his service puts the devotee of the Lord in a trance by which to realize everything, because to the sincere devotee of the Lord reveals himself as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 10:10. The Lord being the Lord of intelligence in everyone, even in the non-devotee, favors his devotee with proper intelligence, so that automatically the pure devotee is enlightened with the factual truth about the Lord and his different energies. The Lord is revealed not by one's speculative power or by one's verbal jugglery over the absolute truth. Rather, he reveals himself to a devotee when he is fully satisfied by the devotee's service attitude. Shukadeva Goswami is not a mental speculator or compromiser of the theory of as many ways, as many conclusions. Rather, he prays to the Lord only, invoking his transcendental pleasure. That is the way of knowing the Lord. Translation again. It is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who gives liberation by thinking of his lotus feet at every second, following in the footsteps of authorities. The devotee in trance can see the absolute truth. The learned mental speculators, however, think of him according to their whims. May the Lord be pleased with me. Very nice verse and purport describing the mood and mentality of a devotee of the Lord, a Vaishnava. One of the points being made here, a Vaishnava, the Vaishnava is one who follows authorities, who accepts the conclusion of the Shastra as presented over the centuries, unchanging tattva. At the end of the purport, Prabhupada refers to tattva. Tattva means what is the absolute truth. Anything which is absolute is not changing, does not need to change. So the underlying principle, which is pointed out here by Srila Prabhupada, is the need to develop what Srila Prabhupada refers to as service attitude. A service attitude cannot be cannot be imitated. Either we are having or cultivating service attitude. Service attitude has to do with mentality, mental disposition. Just like in the context of Vedic education, one of the important principles is the mental disposition of both the teacher and the student. Mental disposition, specific qualities that need to be there in order for a fruitful exchange to take place. Actually, as devotees, we are all students, isn't it? The teacher is Krishna. He is the Adiguru. He is the original spiritual master. And we are all his servants. So that's very nicely explained, of course, in the Bhagavad Gita. The preliminary qualities that need to be there for a disciple or for a student. Disciple means a student. This is being pointed out here. The Vaishnava always considers himself as a student, as very unqualified, and therefore eager to hear from authorities. So therefore we have that verse, Tadvidi pranipatena pari prashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Whole purpose of spiritual life is to come to that point of tattvadarshi, to become tattvadarshi. What is meaning of tattvadarshi? Tattvadarshi, the perfection of tattvadarshi is to always be in that consciousness of understanding our position in our nature, and which culminates actually in developing what is called this service attitude. As I was reading the purport in the beginning, it mentions about how we have, as devotees, we have to give up this propensity of, it's everyone's malady or disease in the material world, this propensity of lording it over. So some years back, I forget exactly in which context, but there was some discussion. One GBC member, because there's a lot of discussions naturally that go on between anyone of any who's a member of any organization or company. If they are directors, they talk about so many things. So at one point there was one GBC member mentioning that because every year the GBC, they meet and they kind of like they have their different areas of preaching. They're called zones, you know. This is my zone, this is your zone, like that. We are part of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, where the whole world, you know, the mission of our Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is to introduce the chanting of the holy name and to reform as many conditioned souls as possible. So the whole world is like our field of activity, so to speak. So Prabhupada had divided like this from after establishing the GBC. Anyways, in this particular conversation, there was discussions on zones, and then at one point, I forget which GBC member made the point. It is not that when we go back to the spiritual world, we will be asking, where is my zone? We are temporarily, it means that just similar to the context of Varnasrama, one is playing the role of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Ultimately, our first and primary role is to be das anudas anudas anudas, servant of the servant of the servant. Jiver Swarupoy, Krishna Nityadas. That is our primary, first and foremost identity, isn't it? Regardless of what additional titles. Sometimes people have long a list of titles. I was just hearing somebody speaking. He had like, we ask people if you go look for a job, they will generally request you to give your what is called CV, curriculum vitae, or resume. Some people have like 90-page resume, so many pages, because they're involved in so many different, activities, and they have so many different titles and whatnot. But the more titles we have in the material world, this is like a disadvantage, because ultimately, when we leave this body, we leave all the titles behind. So whatever position we may be assuming, whatever title we may be accepting, whatever role we may be playing in the material world is all temporary and external. Our foremost, most important role is that of being a humble servant of the Lord. And it is only when we develop this mentality, this is being conveyed here in the purport, that Krishna becomes pleased upon us. Krishna becomes pleased when he sees that we are genuine, not that we're just after material positions or name and fame, etc. When Krishna sees that we are understanding, or at least endeavoring to understand, our actual position and nature, and demonstrating in our daily life and daily activities, then Krishna, dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te, he reveals himself. This is mentioned in many places in the Bhagavatam. This Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam. Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam, every devotee should actually be striving, or should know that actually there is, that process is there. That process is there, whereby we cannot even understand a simple thing unless Krishna is allowing us to understand, isn't it? Yeah. It is said that most of the discoveries, scientific discoveries, were made by accident. And people become very proud, right? I've discovered this, I've discovered that. Of course, a lot of the Western discoveries were actually stolen from India also. That's another thing. When one studies history, there's a lot of because of the culture in India, because of Vedic process, Vedic science, because we tend to forget, we are enamored by modern science. And we think negatively about old ways or old systems. But actually the old systems that are enunciated, especially in the Vedic culture, are the most scientific. and have given the best, topmost of results, both materially as well as spiritually, isn't it? So therefore, Prabhupada makes a point also how this is a common denominator in all of our 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas. Everyone accepts that one is an eternal servant of the Lord. There may be some slight philosophical, differences, but the basic fundamental understanding is there. And actually, this is nicely elaborated here by Srila Prabhupada in the purport. He makes reference to this unusual expression, actually, about, he mentions it 2 or 3 times actually in the purport. Yeah. What is a Paramahamsa? The comparison of a swan. There's an intimate relationship, Prabhupada explains, between the swan and the lotus stem. The comparison is very appropriate. Without becoming a swan or Paramahamsa, one cannot enter into the network of the lotus feet of the Lord. What is the network of the lotus feet of the Lord? Anyone like to comment? The network, we're so accustomed to, World Wide Web network, the computer network. But actually this body is much more, much more, complicated or much more elaborate than the most sophisticated computer. Scientists still are discovering, isn't it, how the makeup of this body, for example, etc. It is like very, very involved, very, very. So one cannot enter into the network of the lotus feet of the Lord. What does that mean? The network of the lotus feet. Huh? Anyone? Because we're not supposed to speculate. That's one message. The network of the lotus feet of the Lord. Yes.
Maybe it means the association of the Lord.
Maybe it means the association of the Lord. Network usually means there's many components, many aspects, isn't it? So yes, that is one of the aspects. Association. Association means seeking out persons. I mean, in our case, devotees who are having this understanding or this realization, or devotees who are developing this service attitude. Service attitude is actually very rare. Service attitude can only become manifest when one is actually, as nicely described here, it's like constantly remembering one's position. Constantly remembering one's position as eternal servant of Krishna, to the point of actually falling into trance or entering into trance by remembering the Lord. So the network, just like in Krishna consciousness, there are so many components that make up what we call Krishna consciousness. And of course, one of the foremost aspects of Krishna consciousness is what Manu is mentioning in terms of devotees, association of devotees, isn't it? We generally only realize the association of devotees when somehow we are not having association of devotees. You know? It's just like we only appreciate uh, good health when we become sick. Otherwise, we take it for granted. Yeah. But in Krishna consciousness, we if we apply properly here regularly, we avoid taking things for granted. We learn to appreciate the fact that we are in the association of devotees, that we have the opportunity every day to associate with devotees. We have the opportunity every day to hear from Bhagavatam. What percentage of people, how many people in the world, what percentage have this opportunity? It's like 0.0000, many zeros, one, you know? You know, what is really the percentage of people? Who's here, who's attending Bhagavatam class? Even amongst our devotees, those who are devotees, especially those who are initiated, they have the knowledge. They have some knowledge. They don't have the full knowledge. They have the basic knowledge. But unless one acts on that knowledge. So this is like a very, when we think of it, it's like before we came to Krishna consciousness, obviously we did not, most of us did not even know that Bhagavatam existed, or that Krishna existed for that matter. Like persons like myself from the Western countries, you know, the word Krishna is like, was totally alien to us, and we had no idea. So this is very nicely being made here, that when we actually learn to properly apply the knowledge that we receive, then and when we learn some of the fundamental principles of spiritual life, the foremost being that we are not into speculation. We understand our fallen condition position. We understand our inability actually to understand anything because of the limitations that are there, this body, this mind, this intelligence, the defects, natural defects that are there. So we accept the authoritative statements, and we endeavor every day that we have is a blessing. Krishna is giving us an opportunity to put into practice this philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And it is to each and every one of us how we properly, you know, apply. So many nice points Prabhupada is referring to, and in particular also in the last paragraph, this humbleness of the pure devotee, one who is 100% engaged in his service. That is the symptom of a fully surrendered soul, fully surrendered devotee. He understands his position, he understands the mission of the Lord, and he endeavors to utilize his time properly in Krishna service, knowing and understanding. Prabhupada often would make this point in classes. It was the 21st of July, 1974. Prabhupada was giving a class in New Vrindavan. That class was attended by devotees from different temples, including some temples from Canada. So in that class, Prabhupada asked at one point, "What is the date today?" Then one devotee said, 21st of July. I didn't realize at that time actually that 21st of July is my mother's birthday. That was the day I got initiated, actually. My sister reminded me, "Hey, you got initiated on your mother's birthday, our mother's birthday." So Prabhupada was asking the question, this 21st of July will never come again. This day is going. So as often Prabhupada would say, this is it's also described in the Nectar Devotion. A characteristic of an advanced devotee or a pure devotee doesn't like to waste time. He's very conscious of the time factor. And in the material world, we have this expression, killing time. Let's kill some people. People don't have proper engagement, so let's do something. Let's kill time. Let's kill time. The more they kill time, the more they kill themselves, right? Time is, yeah, right. Ultimately, time is killing everyone. Yeah. So pure devotee endeavors, all of us are called upon to develop this mood, this mentality of understanding our very insignificant position. Who are we? What are we? And therefore, the more one understands his position, then he naturally becomes humble. And humility was the foremost quality that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu looked for and appreciated in his devotees. That is there in the Shikshastika prayers. Trinadapi sunichena taradapi sahishnana amanena manadena kirtanya sarahari. Unless one develops this mood, this mentality, then one will not be naturally attracted to chanting the holy name. One will not be attracted to performing devotional service, isn't it? Yeah. So we'll just read once more. If anyone has some comment or question, we can share in a few seconds. The translation again. It is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who gives liberation. By thinking, it is only Krishna who is known as Mukunda, the giver of liberation. By thinking of his lotus feet at every second. This is the characteristic of an advanced devotee, pure devotee. Always thinking of the Lord at every second. Following in the footsteps of authorities, the devotee in trance can see the absolute truths. Tattvadarsha, Tattvadarshini. The learned mental speculators, however, think of him according to their whims. Yes. Vedeshu durlabham. Can never understand. May the Lord be pleased with me. Anything? Wow. The network of the lotus feet of the Lord. Yeah.
And that made the network so complicated.
Yes, that's another aspect that not only the devotees, ultimately everyone is dependent and das anudas anudas. That's the special characteristic of those who are somewhat awakened to their identity, eternal identity, and so there are, for example, in our daily, here we are in Mayapur. So there's so many devotees in Mayapur. Some are residents, more permanent residents. Some are just visiting. And we interact with different devotees. So it's like everyone has his own program, his own situation. So everyone has their own network, and then we come whenever we come in contact with another devotee, we come in contact with his network also. And it's just like when someone gets married. You belong to one family, then you get married, then your network expands, right? So the reference here, of course, is in terms of spiritual network. In other words, we all belong to a very intricate, very involved, actually, spiritual network. And if we don't learn how to deal or how to act, or how to move within the spiritual network, well, we may end up again in the material network. And the material network, because it's also Krishna's energy, is quite, we all know, it's quite a network also. It's very intricate, very involved, and those who have not yet had the opportunity to come to Krishna's spiritual network, they're in the, world wide web of material life. Many years ago, when I was in Montreal, I was not using computers. When I was in India, I never used computer, actually. I was a poor brahmachari, didn't have any money to buy a computer, but I had a typewriter. I would type. So when I went back to Canada, I remember it was in Montreal. Somehow I slowly got involved with computer, and then I didn't know at that time about what they called, the world wide, WWW means, yeah, World Wide Web. You know about that. But, yeah. So the whole world is like enamored by this World Wide Web, which is actually keeping everyone under, in darkness and entangled in so many ways. Just go on Facebook. Facebook is like one of the more entangling webs, that consumes so much of time and energy. And it's like I don't use a Facebook, actually. Of course, one can use it. Many devotees do use it, but one has to be careful also. Otherwise, you get, it's got, you get caught up. Huh? Yeah, dangerous. Anything else to share? Question? Yeah.
What are the practices that be less attached in
What are the practices that one can be less attached? All the practices that are not connected with Krishna. The practices that we should be less attached with are directly related with the four principles that we follow, isn't it? And here there's mention about speculation. So one of the four principles that we follow is gambling. So mental speculation is a form of gambling also. So it's not that we should not only, control ourselves and not go to the casino. Here, there's no casino in Mayapur that I know of. So there's, it's quite easy. It's generally one of the more simple principles to follow for devotee, not to go to the casino. I mean, I've never gone to a casino. I've seen pictures of casinos, and every big city is, Montreal has one of the very big casino also. Of course, there's different kinds of gambling. You can buy lottery tickets. That's also gambling. But gambling is also speculating, mental speculation. Just like another principle, sex life, avoiding illicit sex life. So sex life is not only gross sex life on the gross level, but sex life, there is subtle sex life also. Prabhupada explains. Seeking fame, name, fame, position, adoration, hey, it's me, why you're not paying attention to me? And who are you? Prabhupada one time was asking, one person was asking, at the end of the questions, at the end of the lectures, Prabhupada often would ask questions. That was, I think, in Australia. And somebody was having a question about something Prabhupada mentioned, about the universe or something, or about the yugas, people living for 1,000 years, people living for 10,000 years. Somebody was saying, how is that possible? And then Prabhupada told him, he says, you just came out of the womb of your mother. What do you know? We're all caught up with this false ego. We try to understand things from our perspective. Our perspective is what? We are like, this whole planet is a speck in the universe. And we are a speck within the planet. So what can we know? What can we understand? So this is a disease that we have been carrying since time immemorial, connected with what is called ahankar, false ego, thinking ourselves or seeking or wanting to be recognized or to be to be praised. So everyone is caught up with this. But as we can see here in the purport, a devotee, the sign of an advanced devotee is that he has absolutely no connection with this, has no interest, doesn't seek in any way to be honored or recognized. Rather the opposite, he runs away. He tries to avoid such kind of the nice example of Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri was, as nicely described here, he was such an advanced personality, Vaishnava, that he had taken a vow never to ask anything to anyone, including food. Although those who are in a renounced order, they can perform what is called madhukari. They can beg. But he had taken such a vow. Anyways, Krishna was very pleased with him and reciprocated, as we know, the whole story in Remuna, where they make the world fame kheer, Remuna kheer, for Gopinath. So Krishna had arranged for him to receive a pot of kheer that he had hidden, isn't it? Unknown to the pujari, who had to be awakened. Who in a dream Krishna told him, go and get that pot, give it to Madhavendra Puri. So Madhavendra Puri, such a humble soul, when he received the pot, of course he was very pleased. He was in ecstasy, but he immediately understood, I have to get out of here. I have to leave before the sun rises, before people come to know that this pujari got this order from the Lord in a dream to give me this pot of kheer. So immediately he left Remuna. He was on his way to Jagannath Puri, actually, to get some sandalwood, because it was available. I guess it was coming from Malaysia, right? At the port in Jagannath Puri. And he was going to take that all the way to Vrindavan. So when he left Remuna, before arriving in Jagannath Puri, he stopped in a place, Kathak, I believe, one place in Kathak. And so he left very, very early. But when he arrived in Kathak, everyone already knew. He was trying to run away from fame and recognition, but people already knew. And so they, the Prabhupada in that context was mentioning that the devotee doesn't like to be recognized, but the Lord in different ways recognizes his devotees. Yeah, right. Krishna has the most sophisticated internet that one can even, modern day people, they are enamored by what is becoming very prominent nowadays, AI, right? Huh? Artificial intelligence. Why bother with artificial intelligence? Krishna has a real intelligence. Who else can be like Krishna and be everywhere at the same time as super soul in every heart of every living entity and within every atom? Nothing artificial there. That's who he is, And so when we begin to understand this, then we start acting a little differently in life. Means we remember Krishna, we remember our position, and we try to render some service, and we try to develop. It will come automatically, actually, as one purifies one's consciousness. The main point at the end that Prabhupada is making, one will develop this natural service mood or service attitude. Yeah. So in that context, Prabhupada would explain different types of devotees, 4 types of devotees. The devotee who doesn't need to be told. He knows what needs to be done. He's a first class devotee. Second class devotee, he needs to be told, but he's very happy to do the service. Third class devotee also needs to be told, and he'll do the service, but he won't be happy about it. And the fourth class devotee avoids the spiritual master, because even if somehow he gets some order, he won't do it. That's 4 class. So at least we should become second class devotees, and our aim should be to become first class devotees without having to be told. Understand what is needed, what needs to be done, and be happy in doing it also. Okay, I think we have to close. Jai Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Pimanandi. So we have a garland for those who come from far away. I see he comes from far away, but it's okay. Well, if we get another one, we'll give him one tomorrow. There you go. It matches well with your shirt, with your contrast. Oh. So we should thank all the